When it comes to evaluation criteria, I think I personally love when funders are transparent about this. You'll see this especially for federal, state level proposals. They'll give a rubric and be transparent in terms of what their reviewers are looking for when looking at your application. But that's not always the case. So Asia and I are going to talk a little bit about how do you make sure that you align your programming, your narrative to what the funder is looking for in a way that doesn't completely compromise your program and make it seem like you're chasing that award. So Asia, what are some best practices? What have you seen with different applications, and how do you typically approach this evaluation criteria with your narratives?
Definitely. First off, I just want to start off with the best practice of you don't always have to do the cold outreach, right? To Anthony's point of chasing the dollar, because that's what it gives sometimes. That's what it's giving off to a funder, that you're only reaching out to me because you want me to fund the program or the nonprofit that you're representing, and in addition to not right taking advantage of some of the programs that the funder already has out there to make sure you're equipped to where you don't have to ask them and you're prepared for the application. What I mean by that is having seen successfully done nonprofits attend some of those info sessions that funders are putting together at the top of their funding cycle to, one, not only make you feel comfortable, introduce themselves, meaning the funders introducing themselves to you as the nonprofit, but also making sure that you have the tools so that you can collapse your timeline and not spend time talking to them about questions they may have already answered in programs that they're facilitating for you. And so that's definitely one of the best practices that I've seen, nonprofits being able to take advantage of doing that. And as a grant writer, I'm always going to take advantage to do that, because there may be some gems dropped in that real time workshop, right? Or info session, if you will, that's not posted online, or maybe they're not even giving out rubrics. And especially at the federal level, they're always making an opportunity to be able to showcase to you what's going on. But that Q&A is definitely a place to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point in terms of the relationship aspect. Like when it's black and white, like with a federal proposal, that's wonderful. But yeah, I think this is an opportunity to reach out to a funder, and especially if their priorities might be a little bit different than what your program is bringing to the table. Mention to them like, we love that you're focused on this aspect of improving communities. This is where our organization is coming in, and again, that mantra I said, where when you ask for advice, you get money. When you ask for money, you get advice. Just sharing what you're seeing on the ground, thinking through that holistic picture that we've talked about how maybe this food assistance opens the door for folks to have more money for housing, for transportation, childcare, et cetera. And just having that dialogue, I think it shows that you're thinking proactively. You're not just hitting them up for money. It's not rushed, but trying to start a conversation, but that maybe this funder isn't right for you, but they can refer you to folks, that within their network, and specifically for this application, give you some points to look at, really consider, like what do you need to hit on for your application, and just make that as compelling as possible.
Absolutely, because I think the nonprofit in general, the most efficiency, right? Not the folks in the nonprofit, but your entity in and of itself. You're not your entity. Your entity has its own personality. Your entity has its own way of how it operates. It's just by way of humans that it comes to play. And so it's super important that you are communicating, right, with funders in terms of not only what they're looking for, but if their evaluation criteria does not fit where you currently are as a nonprofit, this is an opportunity for you to shine and be able to possibly give a referral, because it shows that you are a subject matter expert in that field that you are seeking funding for, because that's what funders are looking for too. Not only do you know your community of people that you service, but do you also know your community of folks that your fellow nonprofits and organizations that you're working with within that same community.
Absolutely. And switching gears to the example I brought up at the very get of this breakout, when you do have a rubric from a federal opportunity or a government opportunity in general, that's worth its weight in gold. And I think that's a perfect thing to incorporate into your grant writing process if you're working backwards from that deadline to have some peer review, whether it's folks within your agency, folks external to your agency, and give them that rubric, broken down section by section, usually looking at the finer points for what they want you to address, and then just getting a score on like how well do you hit on those points, because those are the same exact criterion that the reviewers are looking at. And it's always great to have an external reviewer of your own see if your application passes a sniff test and give you some tangible feedback on how to improve it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. If you have the resources at your disposal, use them. They're not just there for show. And also, it allows you again to test whether or not you're in the right direction of that grant, because at some point, if you do need to switch gears, you can. But if you are in the right direction, double down on it and make sure your application is standing out as strongly as possible. And so, as it relates to aligning your narrative content with funder priorities, like Anthony has mentioned, that rubric in particular, or any type of evaluation criteria, for regardless of what type of funder you're seeking it from, whether it's in the form of a rubric or it's in the form of a conversation, if it's in the form of how that particular funder is throwing out their branding in terms of what their priorities are, you definitely need to reflect in this moment on how well your organization has done with aligning the story you're telling with those priorities of that funder, because that's definitely what's going to help you stand out and make sure that you've got the right fit for the grant that you're looking to win.